if we all close our eyes and we visualize a homeless person, everybody's gonna have a different idea of what that person is, and then we're gonna use that to blanket the rest of the population. And this couldn't be further from the truth.
A lot of people look at homeless people as like gum on the bottom of their shoe. And they see it, they step on it. It's bothersome because now when you walk, it sticks. Every time they look this way, oh, it's another homeless person, stick. Oh, there's another homeless person, stick.
There's a third of the people that think that it's somebody else's problem. No, this is a community responsibility.
They're probably the most discriminated group in the world.
It's not a political issue. You know, it's a humanitarian issue.
Most people say, not in my backyard, right? Most people say, I don't want that person that's sleeping on the streets or in a tent in my backyard.
We just tacitly accept that they're no longer worthy of respect. And that, again, that does damage to somebody's image, that does damage to somebody's sense of belonging, their sense of accomplishment.
It just goes to show some people are real ignorant to the fact that homeless people are human beings, first and foremost.
What they don't understand is that these people are just like you or I.
How do we, like, bring that level of humanity and turn someone experiencing homelessness back into a person instead of the homeless?
You look at homelessness in America, would always spike right after times of war, and in this time when folks were displaced and they're trying to get back home, that's situational homelessness. They find themselves without a home, and then they become homeward bound. And so that's why they would call them hobos. It was short for homeward bound. People are catching the railroad, the trains to get back. People are hitchhiking to get back. You remember the old picture of a guy with a stick and a bag on it. And the solution for that, because it was situational, was pretty simple, right? A community or church would come together, folks would go to the church, and it would give them a place of respite where they could rest, recover, and reintegrate. That was it. This is around the same time that their asylums were happening, before they started to shut them down. And so most severely mentally ill folks were not around. We didn't have them on the streets. And so from the shutting down of the asylums, to the war on drugs around the 80s, and then you start introducing the medicating of America. All these things culminated to where now we don't just have situational homelessness, we have behavioral homelessness. There's mental illness, there's drug addiction. There's folks that started out situationally, but have been on the streets so long that it's turned into a behavioral issue. So now we got a bigger problem, so it's not as simple as put them in a shelter and they'll figure it out. I think that we've been trying to solve a behavioral homelessness issue with a situational model, and hoping that people will remedy their homelessness themselves if given this place to rest. But it's not like that anymore.
I came in with my own preconceived ideas of what homelessness looked like and what the challenges were. And I'll tell you that interacting with that population, I realized each of these individuals has a different background, a different unique need.
My wife and kids, they moved out here in January ahead of me because we had just gotten evicted in September. So we start bouncing around, living in hotels, 3 nights here, 2 nights there.
You can go through your life and do well, and then things will happen.
I'm looking for jobs, didn't find a job right away because of course I don't know nothing.
So you got Grant that has job, wife, kid, house, vehicle. Grant starts doing drugs, and it causes me to lose my job. Then I become Grant without a job. Now, if I don't address why I lost that job, I'm just gonna get another job and then lose that job. And then I'll get another job and lose that job because I'm not addressing my drug problem or mental health issues that caused me to lose that job.
I had a girlfriend at the time, and she mentioned to me, let's try some cocaine. And at that time I was, like really in shape, didn't think nothing of it, thought I was gonna be able to do it one time. And that one time that I did it with her turned into 10 years later. I went from having an apartment, having a job, basically having a business, to losing the job, losing my business.
But as long as I had a bottle in my hand, I was content. You know, 6 months down the road, I had run out of resources, ran out of money. Nobody really wanted anything to do with me because of, you know, the fool that I would make myself turn into with my alcohol and drug use.
So now I become Grant who's always losing jobs, and it's my identity. I still have a house, I still have a family, I still have a car, but I'm Grant that always loses jobs. And eventually, this will cause me to lose my family. Then it's Grant who loses family, and that's my identity.
I think the community as a whole believes that it's just kind of one mistake, one lost job, one drug use, and you can end up at our doorstep. And that's really not the reality, because you really have to burn through friends, family, coworkers to get to our doorstep.
And then it's Grant who loses house, and now I'm couch surfing.
I was homeless for about 4.5 years out there in Las Vegas, bouncing around couch to couch, sleeping on rooftops, just basically, you know, sleeping here or there, wherever you can.
I was homeless. I was living in the back of my ex-girlfriend's Expedition. So I was completely homeless.
I was homeless on the streets, literally, me and her in a tent, sometimes not a tent. It was very hard, very rough.
I had a home, I had a car, I had a job, and I was having my first son. And in 6 months, I destroyed all of that.
Then it's Grant who's living in his truck. And this is my identity. This is slowly who I'm becoming because I'm not addressing why I became there in the first place. And then I'm Grant at a bus stop.
I lose the room, and I end up sleeping at the bus stop in between the Peppermill and the European Fitness Center. I feel like you're gonna freeze to death if you fall asleep. So just staying awake, man, just, you know, just watching the cars go by.
I just drove myself to becoming homeless. I was living outside, I was sleeping under cars, I was under park benches, I was sleeping at the park right across the street from a renowned hospital. Anywhere I could basically lay my head. I might be out here on the streets, but I've lost my dignity and freedom, and I'm hiding amongst the shadows.
And now I don't just have a drug problem. Now when I get clean, I have an identity crisis. I don't even know who I am.
I lost my self-respect, I lost my dignity.
I couldn't hate anything else as much as I hated myself.
That individual usually has a sense of hopelessness. That's probably one of the big driving ones that you have. They've lost their faith in themselves, they've lost their trust and faith in others.
There's so many different reasons why people are on the streets. Was it situational? Was it that your rent was raised? Was it the economy's not doing so well? Is it behavioral? Is it criminal? Is it an addiction? Is it, there's so much to it, and a lot of it is based in trauma.
Not everybody is a drug addict and an alcoholic, but what I believe in my heart is everybody has had some form of trauma.
I got molested from age 2 up until 6. That wasn't my fault. And the son of a gun that did it to him before, because everything has a cycle. For every action, there's a reaction.
So electricity goes off, I'm in the shower, and instead of my mom coming to my rescue at a very young age, a grown man comes in the bathroom and slides me down to the tub, wrapped in a towel, and that's the first injection of heroin. It's the introduction of my mom sex trafficking me from 14 all the way to 25. And mentally, physically, emotionally, all the abuse that can be brought when you are sex trafficked.
My dad is, was a severe alcoholic. He's been in prison a lot of my life, and then when he was home, he was imprisoned to methamphetamine. So no fishing trips, no baseball games, none of that.
I was a young child that had a mother and a father who were drug addicts and alcoholics. That caused a lot of trauma in my life. I had a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, a lot of abandonment issues, and I couldn't understand how my mother didn't want me and my brother and my sister, how they chose drugs over us.
You know, it is what it is. Look at it, accept it for what it was, understand and realize it wasn't my fault.
That's where we start abusing substances, because we're self-medicating now.
I was addicted to meth for a lot of years, since about I was 15 years old, man.
Started using heroin when I was 16 years old. By the time I was 18, I was using heroin and meth.
Anytime addiction had a hold of me, all responsibility was out of the door. There was no me getting up, going to work. There was me going to pay my bills and be responsible. It was all about just getting high.
In my addiction, I isolated pretty much. So I didn't go in public, I didn't keep jobs.
Situations where your housing's not consistent, relationships aren't consistent, the community's not consistent, things are constantly changing. The one thing that's consistent is drugs.
As far as I can remember, I've always looked for some way to remove some type of way of how I'm feeling inside. I started doing cocaine, and I ventured off into doing heroin, opiates, which was probably the demise of everything in my life. Opiates, it grabs such a hold on you that you cannot survive for 2 or 3 days without it.
I struggled with meth addiction my whole life. That was pretty much my one obsession, my one focus.
So then you can't stop, you have no control. It's the obsession and then the compulsion. Once it's in your system, all you're doing.
I was still getting high because I didn't understand addiction. I didn't understand how it worked. I know this is hurting me, but at least it's making me feel somewhat okay with where I am in life.
Addiction is a disease. And as long as we're treating it as such, as something that's wrong with somebody, not that the individual is wrong inherently, there's hope there. And I think that we're capitalizing on that.
So if you want to actually help somebody navigate through this, you'd actually have to be more consistent than dope.
Now we know that they could be functioning normally within society, but they're battling, for lack of a better word, their own demons on a day-to-day basis. And so those things have made it difficult for them to function normally, what we would consider normally, in day-to-day society, and generally pulls them in paths which they don't even want to go to and don't even really know how they got there.
I didn't love my spouse, she didn't love me. I couldn't talk to my friend anymore because he didn't like me. It was an awkward tension and energy, and I just got so fed up with it. I was like, I'd rather be homeless. And sure enough, I found myself within that month sleeping on the sidewalk behind the pepper mill.
Homelessness is a big portion of that, is what led to the crimes in the first place. The criminogenic nature of their crime is they're trying to, subsidize, find a way to earn money, wrongly, but a way to address that issue, whether it be substance abuse or trying to find somewhere to live.
I had a $100 to $150 a day habit, and I don't have any income. So how am I going to support that? Well, I'm going to break the law. I'm going to do things to support this habit.
I didn't think I could amount to anything, so I kind of resigned myself to a life of crime. One point in my life, I was resigned to the fact that I was either going to die on the streets, die in prison, or do life in prison. And I was okay with that.
I saw somebody put on a jacket and did not pay for it. Took it right off the rack, put it on, and walked right out the store. In my mind, it was almost like an explosion. It was like, you could just do that?
That's how, sick I was. And so I would run into stores, I would steal to supplement my addiction. My mindset at that time to support my drug habit was I was gonna be what I considered the Black Robin Hood. I was gonna rob from the rich to give to the poor.
Am I a bad person? No, I'm just an efficient survivor, right? And if people that are drug addicts were like, well, they have a broken brain. We don't have broken brains, we just solve our problems really efficiently in the wrong way.
Over the years, it got worse and worse. And 2019, I ended up in some trouble. Got a 3rd DUI, burglary charge, and obtaining a credit card under false pretenses charge. So I ended up at Park Boulevard for about 10 months, fighting to not go to prison. I ended up on the felony DUI diversion court.
We historically have been really black and white. either you're in compliance or you're not. And if you weren't, we were putting you right back in jail. And we found that just doesn't work. So now we are trying to delve into what led up to, this particular instance on why you're on probation, and what can we do, what resources can we provide to try to help that.
I ended up relapsing, and I think like 3 months into it, so I ended up back in jail.
That's no longer what we want to do. That's not our mission, is to throw you in jail. It's to try to find resources for you. But when you have decades of mistrust from the way that we used to do things, it's not something that changes overnight. It's no longer, we're just out there enforcing the laws. We are out there to make our community better. And a lot of that is, what do the people need, and finding out what they need from us and spending the time with them and having those one-on-one conversations to see what we can do.
Being outside, the longer you are outside, your sense of value, your sense of self-worth, it diminishes. For a lot of the people that we serve, most of the time, most of the community, we treat them like they're invisible.
I'm walking down the street, of course, and a guy shouts out of his, car window while he's driving by with all of his courage, "Hey, get a job!" And I'm like, "Yeah, buddy, I got a job. I'm a panhandler." And I was just kind of living like that, right? Everybody's looking at me as a panhandler like I'm a scumbag. Trying to be invisible most days was something that I wanted to be. I just didn't want to re-experience the way people looked at me, like as a panhandler, when I'm walking down the street and there's a couple, like, a dad, a mom, she's got a purse and a kid, and all of them kind of clutch each other when they see me walking by.
And the only times they don't get treated like they're invisible is when they're reminded that they're not welcome. So that takes a toll on your psyche and on your spirit.
I'm tired of doing in and out of jails. I'm tired of digging in trash cans for food. I'm tired of asking people for money, to the point where they would at least look at you in disgust at first, but then it got to a point where you don't even exist anymore. But it hurt. It hurt a lot.
I was just a dead woman walking. If somebody OD'd, I wanted to know where they got that dope from, because I was going to get it, and that's crazy.
You talk to most folks, like, about the homeless issue. It's optics, right? It just looks terrible. And that's kind of on you, right? Like, you see a guy laying down in a park, he's got a backpack in his bag, and he's taking a nap, and you're like, that homeless problem's gotta go. Would you be bothered if it was a soccer mom taking a nap on her satchel? So we have to do this costume exercise, right? It's just because the guy's wearing the homeless uniform. He's wearing the homeless costume right now. It comes down to who you're willing to walk over. Let's start from your house, right? What if this magical bus that comes every week to take your trash never showed up? Just start there, right? And then what if every time you left your house, the doors were wide open and anybody could walk in and take whatever they like? Would you be able to go to work? And then how would your front of your house start to smell if all of that stuff you put out there without this magic bus, didn't come, And then you take a bunch of those, you pile them together, and then you introduce severe mental illness, and then you introduce a little bit of drugs on top of it, then you introduce other behavioral issues and mental illnesses, and you take this group and you pile them all together, right? That's what a camp is. And you have folks from all over the behavioral spectrum. So you look at, the constants of being homeless, so that you're subject to the elements.
Reno weather, it started to snow and it started to get cold.
I could see why people use drugs out here. I used to call it antifreeze if I was drinking alcohol, and fuel if I was using meth. And there was just enough of that to keep me from freezing to death.
I'm glad they took me, because I wouldn't have made it. I probably would have been gone, because the weather had been so cold.
Your things are going to get stolen.
When you leave your camp unattended, then it's likely that someone will like your stuff more than you and take your stuff.
Probably the biggest issue is the stealing, I think, from each other, especially when they're out and about.
People stealing from you, you know, and but she's really good alarm system.
You're going to be subject to violence. This is conflict resolution.
So a lot of fights occur too. I think there's a lot of times where we come out here and, you know, someone has a black eye or something happened over the weekend while we were gone. They don't necessarily, well, you know, tell us what happened, but I think a lot of victimization going on.
I got ran off the Riverwalk because guys were firing off bottle rockets and stuff over my bed area. And I said, no, I got to get out of here.
So it was really scary, and I'm 62, and so I gave up, you know, I can't do it no more.
And you're always on someone else's property, which means that you're always having to move.
Everywhere that we go as homeless people, it's called trespassing.
And at this point, I'd have been arrested like 4 times in a month for trespassing. Just trying to find someplace warm to sleep.
All these things together put you in a condition of fight or flight, right? And there's this constant release of cortisol. And this, over the course of time, can create a mental illness.
So I think too, if you look at the difference between women and men experiencing homelessness, right? They both have very unique needs. But for the women, we find that there's an extra level of kind of trauma with that.
Right before 19, I have my first daughter. So I'm dealing with all this trauma and all this stuff, doing daily tasks, going to work, taking care of my firstborn. And I find the second quote, love of my life. He has a serious drinking problem and an anger problem all in one. So that was because that marriage lasted 1.5 years, and it ended with a nasty DV type situation.
If someone comes in and they're fleeing domestic violence and they're working on themselves and suddenly that abuser calls and he's sorry, she might choose to leave and go back and believe that this time it's different, you know?
The very first individual that we got housed from out here, she was a victim of domestic violence, and it was cold, and she was pretty much in a hole by herself, and had enough and said, I want help, and she's in housing to this day, kind of thing. So there are successes.
A lot of the women don't hold the tents. That's just what it is. And women will exchange sexual favors to have a place to stay at night.
And I didn't care that it was 5 big old burly men in a car. Yeah, I'm gonna get in there because I'm gonna be the one to pull this off.
So I think the other thing that's important to remember is a lot of times women are not experiencing that homelessness for as long unsheltered as men are, because they do perform those favors and they do those other things, which again may mean that they're not unsheltered on the streets, but then that comes with a whole other level of trauma.
Then, you know, of course, as women, we get out there and we do a lot of things, you know, to get our drugs and stuff. And a lot of times, I put myself in harm's way because I wanted what I wanted.
A lot of it's dealt with trade. Definitely with our female population, a lot of trade within them. Use your imagination kind of thing, either for protection or services along those lines.
So what I'm saying is everyone has choices, and you know, I'm here as a result of all the bad choices that I made.
You have the dangers of other people out here, dangers of being a female out here, then the dangers of trains and environment.
So why not sweep the camp, right? And it comes down to, you know, it's inhumane. Moving people out of their place of living is inhumane. But then you also look at what happens in the camps, cultures of the camp. As the camp grows, right, eventually someone's gonna be a leader. In these camps on the streets, it's not the vulnerable that become the leaders. It's the predators.
Out of all the people that live on the train tracks, I've known 4 that have been beaten with pipes, bashed in with rocks while they're sleeping in their tent.
There's obviously this section right here is the area that is who's in charge of this out here, who runs everything, has the most property.
It shouldn't take a pipe to the head, you know, getting your head busted in to be like, oh, I'm gonna decide to go to the shelter.
If you ask anybody that's living on the streets when they were assaulted, raped, beaten, robbed, when their tent was caught on fire. It was in the camp.
I don't want to burn up in a fire. I just rather it be a bullet to the head and just let me go.
And that's the law out there. So if you're okay with that, then by all means, keep picketing. But like, if you're not okay with that, then you should figure out a way to go manage that culture. If you say leave them there, then who's responsible for the overdose? Who's responsible for the rape?
My buddy Justin, man, he came to the shelter. His mom died. When your mom's your best friend and your mother dies, you know, and that's all you know, I can understand why someone would kind of just want to lose all capacity for life. When he got to the shelter, man, he was so scared. He had never been homeless before in his life, 45 years old, never been homeless in his life. And I'm the first person he met. I had barely been there like a week at the shelter. And I told him, look, man, it sucks, but in order for you to get out of this, you're gonna have to keep on pushing forward. So that day we're walking on the river, having fun. He smashes that whole bottle of margarita mix. Justin decides to walk down to the I-80 bridge and jump off the bridge. Somehow he walked up the rocks and came across like this and just walked off the edge and just hit the ground, you know. He messed up the stent in his heart, and it scared the crap out of me, man. That it's like, that's just one of the bad things about being homeless, is that you want to resort to your alcohol addiction or drug addiction to just want to get away from things, and that's just one of the things that happened, you know, because I thought that we were having a great day. He just felt like he wanted to end it all. After this jump he had, he started getting pains in his chest. Someone gives him a pain pill. It was a fentanyl pill. And he took it under the impression that it was a pain medication. So he ODs, and this was in his bed. He OD'd in his bed.
Drugs and alcohol are not allowed at campuses that the county manages. And we know that that is a reality in our community and across this country, that we're seeing increase of drug use. And so staff are trained, all of them are trained in CPR and in Narcan distribution, so that we can act when overdoses occur.
This is the first time that he had overdosed there. They brought him back to life. They gave him 18 Narcans. So he gets kicked out of the shelter for illegal drugs on the premises. He was sleeping on the train tracks. I told him, man, you need to appeal that kick out, because honestly, if you did not do those drugs intentionally and you did not know that they were drugs, I think that you should get your bed back. We wrote the appeal out properly and we sent it to the right people, and sure enough, the next day he had his bed back.
If you leave and you go choose to use drugs and come back, we'll accept you back in. And that's really the important difference between what's happening at the low barrier shelters and what may be happening at other housing programs.
The drug usage in our community that I've seen from the perspective of what people are dying from has really consistently involved methamphetamine over the years. And briefly, there was some heroin in our community, but that's been largely supplanted by fentanyl, which has skyrocketed, really. And I don't think it's an exaggeration at all to say that. I've seen more fentanyl in those 2 years than I'd ever seen in my whole lifetime career prior to that, essentially.
So he overdosed on fentanyl again. I got the text from my coworker at about 7 o'clock in the morning that he said Justin had passed. That's my buddy, bro. That was my buddy, man. I just wish that I could have been there to help him make different decisions.
The unhoused individuals who die in our jurisdiction
deserve the same treatment as everyone else. They deserve to have a thorough death investigation. They deserve to have their name and to be buried with dignity. And so we treat them the same as everyone else. And even though more resources might be required, that's what's required of us as a community. And it's our responsibility to do that.
I know that when you're living on the streets and you're in this condition, that that your whole life is traumatic, right? It's fucking traumatic, dude. And so what's gonna cue you to change?
Honestly, I really wasn't sure if I was ready for change yet. All I knew is I was tired of being on the streets. I was tired of struggling every day. I was tired of looking over my shoulder.
I wasn't ready to surrender. And what I mean by surrender was I wasn't ready to completely just say, Lord, your will, not mine, and do what it took to find complete recovery.
Well, it's probably gonna be something that's more traumatic than what you already experienced.
My girlfriend at the time, she overdosed, and unfortunately she didn't make it. And that kind of just pushed me into like really, really deep active addiction. I went to jail and I lost custody of my baby, who's 4.
At 27 years old, my mental health is at its worst. My addiction is at its worst. And now CPS has 2 of my children, and I have nothing to show for these children that I've, gave birth to. I called CPS on myself. I said, please just take her, put her in a healthy environment, because I don't know what else to do. I'm a desperate mother. I went to jail, X went to jail, and Ella went to foster care.
So whether it's somebody next to you dies or overdoses, or you have that perfect storm of a meltdown where you're ready, and you're ready now, we have to be ready now, because the window is narrow. The window of change is very narrow when you live on the streets, so it falls on us.
The ability to access those resources in a timely way is lacking in our community. We're getting better. Every single opportunity we take to improve, we do. But there's still a gap there that we struggle with. And so by the time we're able to engage and intervene someone, their window of desire to change has moved. And oftentimes then that's a point in time where you need to wait and continue to recruit until you can get that person back again.
When I met Norma, my current wife, drinking and drugging was my thing, but her thing was drinking. Then one day, she was under the bridge and she was sitting on her knees and she just said, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I'm like, I've heard this before, right out of the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when she said that, I knew that that is the beginning of change talk. And I said, all right, this is going to be okay. All I have to do is just wait for her to be ready. And then when she decides to straighten up, I will have no problem going with her to do this life of recovery, or to, stop our homeless lifestyle.
That's our responsibility. To be ready when they're ready. As a system, right? Systemically, do we have the services that are ready? Right now services. That dude's ready to go to detox. Are we ready to go now? That guy's ready to go to the shelter. Do we have a bed now?
I didn't really care to serve or help anybody but myself at that time. So I got high. And that's the last thing I remember. Next thing I know, I wake up, it's August 17th of 2018, and I'm in a hospital bed. I have tubes coming out of me. I don't know what has happened to me. And I'm labeled as a John Doe. Do you know your name? And I was like, my name's Willis. Do you know what today is? And I was like, it's August 12th. And she's like, no, it's August 17th. And she said, you have been out for the last 5 days. And I was like, oh my God. Still to this day, I don't know if I overdosed. I don't know if it was something from my diabetes. I don't know if it was like fentanyl. I remember laying there and just thinking to myself like I was all alone. So here is where the uplifting part starts. My higher power works in a mysterious way. and 2 girls showed up to the hospital, and they offered me, they asked me, like, am I ready to stop using? Like, do I want to get my health in order? Like, my life had gotten so bad out there that, like, my misery could be refunded to me at the door.
So it was through that prayer of repentance that I had sat down in Park Boulevard for 2 months, and I kept hearing, Salvation Army, Salvation Army. This is a great program. This program is Christian-based, faith-based. It's a 6-month program. They actually teach you, how to combat alcoholism and drug addiction. So she said, Kareem, I always hear you talking about God. I also looked at your background, and I see that you have an extensive background in drugs and alcohol, but you've never been given an opportunity at a program. I said, no, Las Vegas never gave me an opportunity to rehabilitate myself.
You're not forcing a change by throwing somebody in jail. You're not forcing a change by taking the drugs away. Each person individually, you have to find what that trigger is that makes them want to be there, makes them want to take part of it. And I think as a whole, we're doing a better job within the community of trying to find that trigger and to address it.
I've always been thrown in jail and in prison. She said, well, guess what? The judge you're going before, his name is Scott Freeman, and this gentleman is all about rehabilitation. We're gonna recommend that you get rehabilitation for once in your life and see what you do with it, right? I was like, please hurry up and sign me up, because Reno, Nevada, what I can say is they honor rehabilitation over incarceration.
Being there to recognize their suffering, recognize their humanity, and really just kind of reminding them that they're probably some of the most resilient people in this community and that they are capable.
The 4 constants: you're subject to the elements, your things are going to get stolen, you're going to be, you're subject to physical violence, and you're going to be asked to move. None of these things happen in the safe camp.
So I came out here in front on the sidewalk, and that's where I was for a month. But I kept on dealing with my outreach people here because I was doing dailies. And with my persistence, this is, we're going to put you in to get down in safe camp. Let's do it.
There's a sense of safety. There's a sense of community, right? And there's also going to be a lot of learning, a lot of behavior modification.
The ambassadors of Reno used to come through, and so they asked me, would I mind if they take my name and nominate me for Safe Camp? It's all about this place right here. If you want to get your life together, sick and tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. They say that in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous and stuff like that. If you're really sick and tired of doing, this is a place to lay your foundation.
There are people that I've thought that I knew weren't going to succeed, that came in and just crushed it, and I think that that's what the camp does, is it opens up for people to be able to to grow.
And it's been a blessing for me. It gives me some place, being a transgender, it gives me a safe place to be at. I can lock my door, I can feel safe behind it. I can be myself, I can open up.
So it falls on us to get folks there, to where they're thinking about the next day. When you're on the streets, you're in a you're in a fight or flight response, and you're in a condition of survival, which means your time horizon is today. So we don't think about tomorrow, we're just trying to survive right now. And being in the camp allows folks to start tapping into that. And you start tapping into those pathways where they're thinking about tomorrow.
But today, I make good, healthy choices.
Now you can have a vessel like a pod, but if it doesn't have the support of a human, right, that is authentic and really cares and is trying to grow you, then it doesn't make sense.
I'm thankful and I'm so grateful that Grant did not give up or give in, when it got hard for him. Because I know many times people turned him down, and I can appreciate that. You know what I mean? I really do.
Housing First does work, but for these guys. And it would work better if there was more wraparound services. It's Housing Plus. That's what they call it, right?
We as a program offer what we call kind of the 4 elements of the program. Number one and most important is our structured supportive living community, which is an alcohol and drug-free living environment. That community of individuals themselves are really the core culture of that is the catalyst for change.
Being a part of the community really made it easier because I was with other people who had been through the same struggles that I had been through. It makes you feel more connected to them and it really makes you feel more confident, you know, because of that.
Since I've been at Crossroads, I definitely have met some individuals that are going to hold true moving forward. So I will have friends that I can turn to in the long run.
They've had the same relationships. They've done the same bad things. Like, you know, they've been to the same shady parts of town and know the same shady people. And it's like, whoa, man, like I'm not alone. And I don't have to do this alone.
I landed at Crossroads, and that's kind of where I started to get better. I realized certain things about myself and came to the realization I wasn't happy, you know? And that was from some help at the people at Crossroads.
I decided in that program, I asked a lot of questions. Why do you do this work? Why are you helping us? And all of the caseworkers, they were sincere.
I started just trusting the process. They told me to do something at Crossroads, and I said, okay. They said jump, I said how high. I bought into everything they were telling me to do, and I trusted them, you know? I said, okay. I'd see a whole bunch of guys there, further in the program than me, and they had bought in. And at first I thought I was like, why are these guys so happy? Like, what is it?
That's just our attitude at Crossroads, is that no matter what walk of life you are, the color of your skin, what your interests are, we care. We want you to be the best version of you.
I gave my all to the program. Like, I needed to stop putting a Band-Aid over my addiction, and I needed to let it scab and heal up. That was just the bottom line.
Ultimately, when the individual leaves, they're employed. They have a sense of confidence. They have a swagger about them that has this sense of being humble, and at the same time, this sense of having self-confidence. They have embraced and adopted the core values of our community. And then they start showing back up every week to support the next guy that comes in the program.
I have no idea where it's going to take me, but I know I want to do something to help people that were like me and feeling it will never change.
I tell anybody that I ever meet, you know what I mean, like, I will show you the dirt road, but it's up to you to pave it. You know, like, if you want to continue to walk in mud and wet snow and all this nonsense, then you have that right. But if you pave it, like, you can create a life that is beyond your dreams.
We give you guys the dirt road, you gotta pave it. And I'll never ever forget those words. It's gonna help me a lot.
Being part of this community has shown me that I'm a part of something bigger than myself, something bigger than my addiction. It actually gave me the opportunity to see that I could actually cultivate meaning and purpose in my life.
If we create the environment, if we create the opportunities, and we empower the individuals to choose to learn to lean on one another as the resource, I think we have something pretty magical.
Our goal at our place is to welcome them with warmth and shelter, and also provide them all of those things that they need to be able to successfully transition out of homelessness.
My first ex takes my first daughter from me, and he says, you'll never see her again, you can't get your life together. And that's it. She was out of my life for 7 years after that. CPS gave my ex my second daughter. And so, still being spiritually broken and no hope, I was out there still using. Why is this happening? What is making this? Why am I not fit to have my children in my life? So I was starting to plead for help. I didn't know quite exactly what I needed.
When I can meet with a mom here and say, isn't momming hard? Isn't it tough to be a mom under the best of circumstances? And here you are in a shelter. doing it by yourself, doing it with 10 other people that are kind of telling you how to do it, that you're not good enough, and you've had your own trauma that you're trying to work through as well, and we can just really relate on that level. It decreases the shame and stigma, and that's how people get better, is when they don't feel judged.
Alicia Kraft sat with me and was like, I highly recommend you getting clean. And with that, I took a very big leap of faith. I stayed.
I think the guests to believe that they deserve more and want more and feel like it is their home while they're there.
I remember going in there, scared. I don't know what to expect. And so I finally meet my caseworker. Her name is Sandy. Great lady, man, oh my God. She gave me a bus pass and she sent me to a job fair at the Washoe County School District. I only went there to appease her. I honestly did not feel like I was gonna get the job, nor did I feel like I was dressed because I only had the clothes on my back. In my mind, I'm really feeling homeless. I'm feeling lost, you know? The only thing I got is my wife and my kids. And the first place I was willing to give me a shot was the Golden Gate Petroleum, right next to the shelter. I explained my situation. I just told him, hey, look, I just moved out here. I don't know anybody. I just want a job. I just want to be able to get on my feet, you know, be able to provide for my family. I just want us all as a whole unit again underneath one roof. So they gave me a job. I showed these to my caseworker. Oh, she's all great. We started applying for apartments. And well, she had a landlord that was already working with participants. I did the application, and 2 days later, man, I got approved.
There is so much that goes into even working with one individual or one family that's experiencing homelessness. And I think that's something that is really important for the community to hear, is that we have worked really hard in Washoe County to make sure that we are kind of that focal point, and we are making sure that no one is falling through the cracks, and we're having those conversations.
One of the biggest frustrations that I've experienced as an advocate is every time we would say, hey, we need more services, or hey, we're not meeting the demand, we'd always be countered with the question of, well, how many people are there actually? Or what is the real need? So having an accurate count of people, having a by name list of here are the actual individuals, being able to track the programs that have been successful for them, the programs that have not been successful for them.
The concept of Built for Zero data is really about understanding each person at an individual level. That's where we start, right? We count each person as a unique individual, what type of housing and what type of services would be needed to support this person. As we've all heard, you can't really solve a problem if you can't see it, right?
Built for Zero was actually absolutely the blueprint. It's kind of the foundation that again gave us access to, we could communicate with people in other communities who were having success. And we were just getting started. So this gave us the ability to understand some of the things that we shouldn't do, that were common mistakes that many communities made, and things that we should do.
One of the things that was missing in the past is the data. And now with that commitment to Built for Zero and being a part of that HMIS data system, right? It gives us a lot more tools to look at that data and see where we need to go next.
So we really focus on that person-centered data, right? So we really look at what is the reason they're coming into us, because we can't successfully exit someone from homelessness if we don't know how they got there.
Having everybody see that information in that same system in real time allows us to be most efficient in our work and getting a client housed.
The collaboration that they're moving towards is excellent, bringing the humanity of the conditions under which everyone in our community is living, and like normalizing the community as a whole to be inclusive of people experiencing housing insecurity. That would be excellent.
And so for us, that's really what Built for Zero or the regional governance is about. It's about bringing everybody to the table and figuring out how to align all those ideas into something that makes sense. And is strong because it works together and is moving forward.
One of the challenges, I think, was getting everybody to move in the same direction, and now there's a clear leader with Washoe County getting us all to move in the same direction, which is phenomenal. You're seeing just incredible partnerships between private funders, all the different nonprofits, the different city government entities, county, all moving in the same direction.
Government can't do this alone. So you're gonna need contributions of expertise or resources from the business community or private sector. You're gonna need volunteers at some point to step in and provide some things.
It's the ability of our county and city leadership to learn how to work as effectively as possible together. It's our service provider community being willing to put down everybody's individual organizational needs to look at the bigger purpose and bigger need that's out there. And it's learning how to tap into the individuals who have the lived experience.
Like 90% of the people that we bring on or recruit have some sort of shared lived experience.
If I talked about Malcolm, or if I talked about Scott, or if I talked about Willis, or if I talked about CJ, they're what drive you to want to find any way you can to make a difference.
After a period of time, they stopped telling me what they want me to do and started asking me, what do I think? How do things need to go? How would this impact you? And I started answering that. And then I started realizing that they weren't talking to me like I was their client. And I started to feel like they were treating me like a person. Next thing I know, I'm full-time and they're introducing me as, hey, look, we have a client staff who's full-time position.
So many of our staff have lived experience. That gives them a deep level of empathy for the individuals that they're dealing with.
Reinvesting in the lives of other people is what helps to sustain and support the individual who is in service. So the phrase from the rooms is, we keep what we have by giving it away.
I think that is something that we need to continue to build on as we go forward. We may have a lot of people that are in our shelters that as they get themselves stabilized at some point might be able to help assist others.
I know it's a big life change or a big deal in someone's life, and like Willis, I just didn't want to let him down. Kind of like the caseworkers, everyone that ever invested in my life, I was like, you have not misplaced your trust. I am not going to let you down.
I love the fact that the people we have working in this space are empathetic. They work hard. They really care about the people that are in these facilities. Many of them have life experiences that have been informed. And so their work comes informed by what they've seen or what they themselves have experienced.
5 years from now, I see myself where I can actually help people, where my voice actually will matter.
So Willis was in the men's Crossroads program and CJ was in the women's Crossroads program, and they had both applied for a job with us, and both of them stood out as incredible leaders all on their own. They both started the same day, so right when we were opening. And you could automatically tell that there was like chemistry between the two of them.
When she came to Crossroads and I came to Crossroads, like we didn't go to Crossroads looking for each other.
I was familiar with, any man wants you, right? If I have something to offer, it's always gonna be something in the pants, right? But Willis presented himself very, very different from the rest.
I remember the first time Willis came up to me, because he's such a good guy. He was like, hey man, I gotta tell you something. I'm like, all right, what's going on? He's like, so you know Charlotte Joe CJ? I'm like, yeah. He's like, so I gotta come forward with you, man. We're dating. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like everybody knows, dude. Yep, and then they got married. I got to go to their wedding. I was one of the groomsmen, and they have a house now. Both of them were getting promoted because they're dedicated and serious and committed. And then they both got their children back separately, so they got reunited, her with her daughter and him with his son.
We got married at Lavender Ridge last year. My CPS worker, Malik, he was our pastor. We had Kim Schweiker, Alicia Kraft, Lisa Lee. They were present for our wedding. We had a bunch of people from Rise join us, people from Narcotics Anonymous.
They believe so heavily in the mission, not because it's for like a calling or anything, but because they are the mission, right? The people we bring on are the people that we serve, and they get to be the living example for those of us who still haven't found hope again, that what they're experiencing isn't forever.
The opposite of addiction is connection. That connection piece there, you know, that's like part of the miracle.
I've gained a career where I'm helping families seek recovery and shelter for themselves and work on mental health for themselves as well.
I think part of transitioning or reinventing yourself in this way is that you give back, that you help.
I'm a big sister to some of the girls. You know, I come down here and talk to them and help them out.
It's really one of those hopeful stories when somebody has their own set of keys and a locking door and their own bathroom, and they get to celebrate the fact that they did it. Something they thought they never could do, or something they thought that would never happen for them again. That's a huge win for us, and being there to share that moment with them, and reminding them that we don't get to take the credit for their success, that they had it in them all along.
Honestly, Reno was the best decision for my family. 100%, 1000%, honestly. If I were to show you the pictures that I have on my phone that I took from our Christmas tree, and all the presents around it, dude, like I was looking at it and it just makes me want to cry. I'm actually able to provide them a Christmas where pretty much everything that they've asked for is underneath that tree right now. I worked hard to be able to provide them for them, you know, and if I hadn't to come here where they had the resources available to me, to everybody who was in my position, I don't think that I would be where I am today. I wouldn't have my apartment, I wouldn't have my family, I wouldn't have a car.
You know, I'm excited for my future. For the first time in a long time, I wake up happy every day. You know, I feel like I belong to something bigger than myself.
The beautiful thing is that we have that love, we have that empathy, have that understanding, and that compassion to show this population of people that we really do care and we really do understand, because we've been where you are now, but you don't have to stay there.
I just want people to know that it's okay to have tough times, man. It's okay to have tough times, that there's people that are willing to help if you need the help. That if you feel lost, you know what I mean, don't, because as long as you have in your heart that you want to change something, you can change that.
We're seeing things come together. We're seeing success. People are getting housed.
I thank God every day for what Washoe County, along with the city of Reno, and what Volunteers of America has come together to do for the homeless population here in Reno.
Serving the homeless community and meeting the needs of that community, I view as a never-ending quest. I don't know that we'll ever be able to sit here and say, we're finished, done, we can move on. There are always going to be those who need some help.
You know, you can make it out. Homelessness is just a temporary thing. And it can happen to anybody.